Oh shoot. Did I unmute my mic? I think I did. Yeah, I think we're good. Ding. So disconnected, reconnecting. I don't know. We'll have to find out. Let me know. And I'm gonna mute this. And I'm gonna stop that. Thanks for being here. If you are here, I don't know. Somebody let me know. Um, Man, it's been a long time since I've done a live stream, and I'm super unprepared. I have no idea what I am doing. Thanks for being here, though. So the purpose, the reason I called you all here was because I was going to do a little unboxing and first impressions of this guy, the FX30. It came a lot earlier in the day than I was anticipating, so I went ahead and unboxed it. So you can't see that, except for I made a short and posted that on my channel a couple hours ago. Um, but yeah, unboxing, that's not very exciting anyway. So yeah, I'm just going to talk about this camera a little bit and kind of the reasoning, the rationale. We can maybe talk about Super 35 versus full frame and that whole spiel, that whole controversy. Um, and I might hook it up to the ATEM. I am on the ATEM, right? Yeah. Hook it up to the ATEM and kind of go through the menus. I haven't really set up the camera yet. And it's different. So I've got, that is the A7S III. And then I also have the A7 IV, which I might end up selling. I don't necessarily think I need three of these cameras. Actually, I know I don't need three, but we'll see. So anyway, the menus are a little different, as you may be aware. Sony kind of pulled a fast one on us A7S III owners and upgraded the firmware of the FX3, um, but didn't upgrade the firmware of the A7S III. But they've added all that tasty goodness to the FX30 and a little bit to the A7R5. So very weird. Anyway, um, as you may have seen um, at the beginning, if you were here or if you're here now and looking at what I'm pointing at, I did go out and shoot a little bit of footage in the backyard with my dogs. Not much of anything really. So that's all I've really gotten a chance to do with the camera so far. But um, I really like it. I really like the body. It feels very similar to the A7S III, the grip and everything, the buttons. It just, there's a kind of a little bit of a quality difference, I think, between this and the A7 IV. It's very hard to kind of pinpoint exactly what the difference is, but anyway, it's there. It's a little bit beefier because it has that fan in there, so it's a little deeper. Yeah, so I really like it. Otherwise, it's very similar. It's got some different button placement, obviously, because it's just not a photo camera. It's not laid out like that anyway. So anyway, kind of like it. So far, so good. Yeah, cool. So let's talk about a little bit about why I got this. Um, Mostly to prevent myself from getting an FX6. Uh, I would have sold a bunch of stuff and gotten an FX6, but I didn't do that. And really, I think there's still, it's been out for a few months now, but I think there's still some interest in this camera. And I really wanted to rent the Panasonic S5 II, and I was led to believe it was going to be available to rent, but it's not until probably June. So I don't know. I thought maybe I'll just try this out instead. Because in terms of content creation, I didn't want to buy an S5 II, even though it looks like a really cool camera, because that would entail buying lenses for it. And then I would have Sony camera, Sony bodies, and Sony lenses, and then Panasonic as well. And that just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So at least with this camera, I'm able to use all the same lenses that I already have. So that was another reason. DS keeps disconnecting. This might all be for moot point, I guess, in the end. Um, so it's kind of this weird Frankenstein. assembly. The design of it is like not the sleekest thing that I've ever seen. The top handle itself is a little bit short, and there's obviously, well, there's a lot of like accessories that you can buy for this that make it taller, and they also make it a little bit longer. Um, it's plastic, but it's like really thick, so it doesn't feel like super cheap, but it also just, doesn't feel, it's not metal anyway. And but anyway, so the K3M module is what you can buy, which is great. But the problem with that is it's really the only place that it mounts to the camera is via the accessory shoe. So, you know, it's not the most secure thing in the world. So you have this big kind of apparatus just sticking on top of your camera. I know that you can't offset it, so you can have cages and move it over and probably bolt it down more securely somehow with some different cages that are available. But this bolts to the camera and it feels very secure. Obviously, you can just hold it via that. So it's kind of a nice solution. As for So I was thinking in terms of like this kind of scenario where I'm just using it for YouTube talking to camera sections or videos. I sync audio all the time. The only time I really record to the camera is when I'm wearing a lav mic. I use the Rode Wireless Go, but I don't often use a lav mic. I don't like, I like to have better audio than that. Um, so I record with an audio interface, and then I usually use Adobe Audition. Sometimes I record directly into Resolve, but so it's not a hard thing to sync audio in post. It's pretty like I mean, it does it for you essentially as long as you find the right files that go together. But it's just like a whole other bit of setup. So you have to open the program, you have to create a new project, then you obviously record it, and then you have to export all the files, import all the files into Resolve. So then you have to match up your camera files to your audio files. So, it's just a much more, uh, there's there's more to it, I guess. So having like really high quality audio directly in a camera is definitely appealing. It just takes out some steps, save you some time, save you some setup, um, save you some hassle in the end. So that was kind of a cool thing, or an interesting thing for me. And the other thing, with you just have the camera on a tripod, um, you can just swap out, you can just put this on to the A7 IV or onto the A7S III. It'll work. It just goes right into the accessory shoe. It just won't be bolted down. But since it's just sitting in my room, I'm not worried about it. Um, so that's kind of the why. Maybe not the most compelling reasons ever. And I definitely didn't want to spend the money on an FX6, and likewise, I didn't want to spend the money on an FX3. I already have the A7S III, um, which I love. It's kind of been my favorite camera that I think I've ever owned and potentially ever shot with. So I wouldn't really mind having an FX3, but yeah, it's really comes down to the money factor. Let me say, yeah, so the stream, obviously I'm just going to ramble on and on about what this camera is, why I bought it. But a little bit later, maybe I will hook it up to the ATEM and we can go through the menus a little bit. I haven't set it up for me yet. I kind of went through, obviously I went outside to shoot with it a little bit, and there was a few things that I wasn't quite sure about because they're different enough from the other cameras that I was thrown off a little bit. So we could do that, and then I thought maybe I would take a look at some of the footage in Resolve and see how it stacks up. I mean, not with like a direct comparison to anything, but just anecdotally, I guess, on its own, see what it looks like. So, if anybody's here, please comment, please say something. How are you guys doing? Happy Friday night. I'm sure why would you be here on Friday night? I'm here because I got to go to work at 4 o'clock in the morning, so I'm definitely not doing anything else on a Friday night. But I wouldn't be doing anything else anyway. 2:56. How long have you been streaming? So maybe a little bit about that whole APS-C or Super 35 millimeter sensor size versus full frame. That's been the trend for sure has been towards full frame sensors on YouTube for sure for years now. But it's also a trend like in Hollywood, in streaming shows. You see more and more stuff being shot with full frame. So that would be like the Arri Alexa LF, the Alexa Mini LF, and then Red, the Monstro. They've probably got other full frame cameras. I don't really know. Um, and then even there's even bigger, like so the Arri 65 is basically like two full frame sensors stacked together, which mimics like a 65 millimeter, 70 millimeter film stock. So you see more and more stuff being shot with those bigger, larger formats. But you still see a lot of stuff shot on Super 35. So the Alexa, the Alexa Mini still remain really popular, even though the LF has been out. Um, I've been watching The Last of Us on HBO Max, and um, some of the early episodes, like probably the pilot or the first episode in particular, I remember thinking that there was a lot of noise in some of the footage, or some of the scenes, I should say, not the footage. In some of the scenes, I was like, that's pretty noisy. I wonder what camera they're using there, because it wasn't like film grain like that was added in post. It was definitely like digital sensor noise. And then some of the outdoor scenes looked super clean, super crisp, and very like three-dimensional. So I was like, that kind of looks like a full frame. So anyway, I looked it up on IMDb, and then I also found an article that an interview with one of the cinematographers. As a TV shows typically have multiple directors, multiple cinematographers, but one of the cinematographers who did a large portion of the episodes um, mentioned that they shot with the Alexa Mini, so the original Alexa Mini, the Super 35 one. Um, so anyway, all that to say, it's still a viable format. There's still reasons that people are using it and don't buy into the hype or the trends that you have to have full frame, because you don't. And I was kind of excited to get a Super 35 millimeter sensor. The only one I've ever owned was the Nikon D3300, which was the first camera that I had to shoot video on, which wasn't a great video camera, but it was a fine photo camera, but it was, budget DSLR. And I've had Micro Four Thirds, which is even smaller. I've also got the Pocket Cinema Camera OG, which is even smaller than that. So I've had a lot of crop sensor cameras, but this is the first like good APS-C camera that I've ever owned. Um, I don't know. I've shot a lot of projects too with Super 35 with the Canon C300 Mark II, the Canon C70 and C200. So I've used those sensors, those cameras too. Um, so yeah, there's a lot of advantages. David Stella, hello from Orlando. Hello from Nashville, David. Thanks for being here. Thanks for letting me know you're here. I appreciate it. Um, what brings you here? Let me know if what you're interested in. Hit me up with a comment, a question. Love to love to get some question that I could pontificate on for a little bit, as opposed to just blabbing on and on and on. But anyway, thanks for being here. I appreciate it. So yeah, Super 35, advantages and disadvantages to all the formats. Deeper depth of field can be a good thing, and you don't always want to have razor thin depth of field. It ends up being a cliche, so if it's overused like anything, it just kind of becomes um, trendy and kind of pointless. Um, and there's oh, David says he's basically just a Sony fanboy. We all are. We all are. What are you shooting on? What Sony cameras are you using? Are you shooting video or photos, both? I'm a big Sony fanboy too. I My first Sony camera was the A7S II, and I used that for several years and really loved it. But there's a huge difference between. I've got the A7 III currently as well. I can't believe how many cameras I have. I'm gonna sell that one for sure. But the 8-bit cameras that they only had 8-bit 420, and now all the new ones have 10-bit 422. It's huge, huge difference. It's way better. But anyway, yeah, I've been using Sony cameras for a while. Oh wow, okay. That A7R5 is really cool. Um, we finally got another physical camera store here in Nashville after the last one closed during COVID, and I've been kind of haunting them ever since they opened, just staring at their camera wall. But I wanted to try out a lens, and they had the Sony A7R5. Sony will put on all the cameras in the future because it, obviously it flips out like this, but it also tilts up like a non-flippy outy camera. In addition to all the other great features that that camera has, it's pretty awesome. It's doing. I need to get off OBS. Nothing. He got it. David says he's got his A7R5 from Best Buy. I went to Best Buy to see if they had an FX30 because the camera store didn't have one in stock, and neither did Best Buy. I knew that one of the local Best Buys had one on display, but those are like loaners from Sony, so they can't sell those, unfortunately. So I had to buy mine from B&H. Um, yeah, I mean, I mean, Best Buy like remains one of the places that you can actually go and buy stuff in person. Sometimes it's nice to do that as opposed to ordering everything from Amazon or whatever. David says, great camera for stills, and he's trying to shoot more video this year. Yeah. It's a great camera for video too. Like, it has some downsides, just basically like slow readout of the sensor, but I mean, just the image quality is amazing. Obviously 8K. Um, it looks really, really great. I'm trying to shoot more video this year too. I kind of like I've really been focusing on YouTube as kind of my outlet for shooting video and pursuing it as much as I was in the past. And this year, I'm would like to just keep pushing YouTube and maybe getting to the point where that's like a legitimate source of income as opposed to like mostly me throwing money at it and making maybe a couple $100 a month on a good month. But yeah, in addition to that, I would like to get back into shooting more client stuff. Um, I'm not really into business. I don't want to be in business for myself. I'd much rather just be a freelance um, videographer or even a freelance editor or something like that. But I'm also not good at networking and meeting people and getting getting clients that way either. Um, I don't know. So yeah, I hope to be doing more and more stuff. Uh, da, 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 da. So yeah, I was going to talk a little bit more about the crop sensor versus full frame, but um, it doesn't really matter. Just uh, the you can get really good stuff regardless of the sensor size. I guess is the I'm not good at networking. I'm just like really shy for some reason in person. Like I can have one-on-one conversations with people, but when it comes to just like walking up and talking with people, um, just not good at it. Never have been really good at it. Um, like have moments, but by and large, it's never been my strong suit. Um, all right. Well, keep commenting. In the meantime, I'm going to plug this guy in and see if we can get a feed. Oh, I didn't even set this up. That was stupid of me. That was dumb. The one thing that's throwing me is the alpha cameras have the power button or the power switch right here where the shutter is. This one, just has a switch over here, and I always forget that, and also never know which one is on and which one is off. Okay, cool. So we have the screen here from the FX30. Button is on the right side, so you can use one hand to go into the menu and then navigate it, whereas the other alpha cameras, the menu is on the left side. Just a little small thing. So yeah, you can see, let me get out of this. Okay, so the function menu is the same, which I need to go through and set up how I want it. Okay, so you've got your My menu, which is the same, which you can add items to, and then it looks like you've got this, I guess, quick menu. This is the edition, I guess, that they put in the FX3, the FX30, and I think the A7R5 has it as well. So you've got frame rate, you've got shutter, ISO, aperture, white balance, picture profile, wind noise reduction, proxy recording. You can get to your log shooting mode. So this is the new thing as well that I'll have to get used to. You've got, I don't even know what flexible ISO Cine EI quick are. Kind of think I know what Cine EI is. Whoopsie, whoopsie, whoopsie. I keep hitting the mode button, which is where the menu button is on the other cameras. Looks like you can format or choose your file format naming convention, I guess. Okay, I like it. Quick menu, very handy. I'm down. I'm into it. Let me go to this. So you've got memory recalls 1, 2, and 3. Like all your photo modes. This still has a pretty large ISO range, all the way up to 102,000 and a low of 50. Everything else looks real similar to the alpha cameras, so I'm not going to go through it all. How easy is it to customize? Can you customize this menu, or I don't know that you can add and subtract things from here. But I kind of like what they have on there by default. Whoops, sorry. One thing that was confusing me was so on the back of the camera where the dial is, just like the other cameras, you can map functions to button presses on that dial, but by default, it's got, zebra, peaking, display, and shutter. And I don't really know what happens when you hit the shutter button, because the dial on the back, which is what is typically the shutter, I think on this camera is the ISO. So when I hit that shutter button, nothing happens. If you hold it down, I think it goes into auto shutter. So this is one thing I would have to figure out, because I'd much rather have this back dial typically is shutter, so that's what I would like it to be. And then for me, I like to program the wheel to be the ISO. So anyway, that's what I'm gonna do. Da, 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 da. Okay, so video production company, very descriptive name. I like it. Is asking, is there anywhere we can find your work other than YouTube, Instagram, or TikTok, maybe? I do have Instagram, but I mostly just post pictures of my pets. I don't do a lot on Instagram. It's different from what I do on YouTube anyway. Otherwise, I mean, I could link to some of the things that I've filmed, but I don't have a current reel. What I really do need to make is a reel, but I haven't made one in a few years. Um, so no, unfortunately, I don't really have a good way to point you to anything um, that I've done. You can look for on YouTube. There is a channel, I think it's called the Mule House, which is a music venue about 45 miles south of here in Columbia, Tennessee. And when they were building out that, it was in an old church, like an early 20th century church that they bought and they transformed into a venue, and they were going to turn it into a hotel as well. So we shot kind of a promo short web series, like a 10 episode web series for the owners. And I shot and edited a lot of the episodes for that. I think the only episode that I didn't do anything on was the first one. Um, and let's see. If you search for This is Nashville Part 3, it's a music video that I worked on. There's a lot of shots in there that I didn't shoot, but probably about a third of them I shot. I'm not a big fan of the edit. It's like hyper hyper kinetic editing where it's like it only stays on a shot for like a couple frames. So anyway, I'm just trying to find some examples that you could easily find on YouTube. And I don't know if there's a YouTube channel or page, but there's a short, there's a two-part documentary or maybe reality show um, called Set Apart, which just came out in December last December, that I worked on a lot of. I haven't seen either episode, so I don't know if any of any of my camera work is in there, but potentially it is. So you can look for that too. Um, David says so many sweet features with the FX30. Absolutely. A lot of really great features. I'm still disappointed in Sony for calling it a cinema line camera, this and the FX3, and not doing like low-hanging fruit cinema features or video features like shutter angle. Um, Still, come on, Sony, what are we doing here? So there's a few things that I wish, that Sony would just do, but like Panasonic and Canon, Fuji, I think they all have shutter angle and open gate and all those kinds of things. I think Sony's right up there with everybody else, if not the best. Um, so Armenia, the quality, can you show it? Um, I don't know exactly what you mean by how much space does it have. This is the only footage that I've shot on it so far. So you can kind of see a little bit of how the quality is anyway. So this is straight out of camera. I've not done anything to this footage. This is shot in S-Cinetone, and I did have it on auto shutter, so it's probably exposed a little bit brighter than I would typically. Uh, so this is fine, but like some of the shots, the fur on their faces sometimes is overexposed a little bit. But otherwise, just to give you an example, this is all straight out of camera. S-Cinetone is shot at 60 frames per second, and it's in the H.265 picture. Excuse me, it's in the H.265 codec. If I can find that. So here it is. XAVC HS. which is H.265 or HEVC, and that is the one of the really compressed. That's one of the really compressed codecs. So, oh, actually, let me show you. I think I can just show you the. Here we go. So at 60 frames per second, you can shoot up to 200 megabits per second. So for 42210-bit, the highest quality at 60 is going to be 200 megabits per second on the SD card. If you go into, hold on, I don't know what I'm doing, 24p, that's going to be 100 megabits per second. So you're still getting really small files, really compressed small files, so they're going to be pretty manageable. And I find that the quality is really good. I did a comparison. I haven't published it to YouTube, but just for my own kind of research, I compared all, HAVC, HS 4K, XAVC S 4K, and SI 4K, and most, like in 99% of every instance you're going to shoot in, you won't really be able to tell the difference. But in terms of quality, it's supposed to be SI is supposed to be the highest quality. So this is going to be the biggest file sizes. So for instance, at 60 frames per second, that'll be a 600 megabit per second data rate. And I can't even capture that on this card, apparently. But at 24p, that should be about 240. So biggest file sizes, and the file sizes between these two is exactly the same. So if you shot the same length footage, same resolution, you'd get the same file size out of HS and S. But the HS is supposed to be a more efficient and higher quality compression. But again, I've never really been able to tell the difference. So hopefully. And David is suggesting that I post more of my work in future videos. Doesn't have to be client work, it can be personal projects and stuff. Yeah, I try to do that. I try to, I mean, if I have a project that I'm working on that just needs B-roll footage, obviously I'm gonna go shoot the B-roll footage for it. Um, I used to do more, well, I've never done a lot of vlogs, but I've done a handful of them, and they never get any views. So, um, I don't really do them that much, but I would like to. And I'm also trying to maybe do some documentary work this year, but I'm trying to do it myself. So I don't know if I'll really get it off the ground, but I would like to do that. So just like David was saying, he wants to shoot more or needs to, so do I, definitely. Oh, it's really hot in here. And sorry, my computer is, you can probably hear that on the microphone. My computer is loud, super loud. Let me stop playback over here. So it will stop trying to fly away on us. Well, I don't think that I'm gonna do any color correction or color grading on this footage. And um, you know, I'm going to. Forget it. I'm gonna do it. So if you want to stick around for that, it's gonna take me a second to get that set up, I think. In the meantime, if you stick around, please ask some more questions. That'll be handy. That'll be good. I need to. Oh my God. Got to remember where. Oh, I know. Hold on. Here we go. Now y'all get to see the OBS keeps disconnecting and reconnecting. Sorry, now you can definitely hear my computer trying to fly away. I mean, really, all I kind of wanted to see if there was any latitude, like in this footage, like, so if you look back here, where things are blown out, is any of that recoverable? And if not, it might have as much to do with S-Cinetone as it does with the camera's, raw capabilities. Let me pull this over here. And David wants to know which lens or lenses do you think you'll use most on the FX30? So that's a good question. Let me jump back over to, okay, lenses. So I'm not going to buy any APS-C lenses. I'm not going to buy any crop lenses on it because then those wouldn't be compatible. Well, they would be compatible with the full frame cameras, but they'd most likely have significant vignetting, depending on the focal length anyway. So I've got some full frame lenses already. You can see I've got the 20 millimeter f1.8, and this is a great lens to pair with this camera because in terms of equivalent full frame field of view, it's more like it's going to be like a 30 millimeter equivalent field of view to a full frame. So that's getting you in the ballpark of a 35 millimeter. Um, so that's great, and that's what all this footage was shot on, using this lens here. Uh, in addition to that, I've got the Sigma 24-70 f2.8. So that's going to be a pretty decent um, zoom lens, and I think the 24, so that would be kind of like a 40 millimeter equivalent, so not super wide, but it'll also go probably, to what, about 150 millimeters. So that's pretty good. What I do need to get is something that's wider. I had the 16-28 from Sigma, but I traded that one in and got I traded that one macro lens, which is really cool. um, I haven't had a macro lens before, and I really like this. This is a really cool lens. But even as just kind of a long prime, so 105 millimeter prime at f2.8, it's it's useful for that too. But the fact that you can shoot stuff that's like a couple inches away from your camera, obviously that's different. So that's really cool. And then 105 millimeters on this is going to be even longer. And then I've got the Sony 35 millimeter f1.8. So this will be very roughly equivalent to a 50 millimeter. So those are the lenses that I currently own. To find something on wider. And maybe I will get an APS-C lens for that. I know they've got, I think, a 10 millimeter, a 10-20 or something. I think it's an f4, which would be good, but I'll just have to kind of look and see what's out there. Because I love wide angle stuff. It's kind of my favorite way to shoot. I mean, not always, but definitely prefer wide. But also, I'm thinking about getting that new Sigma 50 millimeter f1.4. You may be paying attention to all the 50 millimeters that just came out. So Sigma came out with their 1.4, and then Sony just dropped their 50 millimeter 1.4 as well. I'd love to get the Sony, but the Sigma is like, I think $800, and the Sony's like $1,300. So yeah, Sigma it is. And I like Sigma. I think they do a pretty good job, and the prices are just insane. Like that 24 to 70 is $1,000 in comparison to the Sony.
Don't let it rule you. Everything's gonna be alright.
Sorry. What about you? Oh my God. Okay, here we go. So I'm not gonna do, I don't know what I'm doing. I also didn't do any adjustments to the picture profile. So if it needs to be unsharpened or desharpened, I didn't do that because I don't like it to be super sharp. I usually set my sharpness in the camera to -7, I think is as low as it can go. Thanks, David. Really appreciate you coming in, and hopefully we'll do another stream in the future. So just wanted to see what we could get back from here. So it looks like there's a few things, a few areas that are just clipped that aren't going to come back. You can see that. But otherwise, even on that waveform, you can see that there's like not a harsh line, but there's some info like right up to the clipping point. Okay. Live streams are definitely not my forte. So I think that's everything I wanted to talk about. I really appreciate those of you who stopped in, and especially those of you who left comments. You're the best. The rest of you, what are you doing to me, man? No, seriously, all of you, anybody who stopped in to watch for even a few minutes or a few seconds, really appreciate it. And let me know, jump in the comments, regardless if you watched much of the video or not, but let me know what you think about the FX30, if there's anything that you would like to see me cover. Just to reiterate, I've got the A7S III and the A7 IV to compare it with. So if those any comparisons that you would like to see, let me know. And really appreciate you stopping in. So have a good night.